Hello, it's me, and you have a green screen now. Goddamn. That's bad.
There we go. I did my whole intro and no one could hear it. I don't know why. I turned my headset on and everything decided to stop working. And yes, I have the green screen now.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to have a background image as yet. And I think I need to alter it just a little bit.
I mean, the most you got is like the green highlight glow, which just means you're on you, the subject. You got a lot of backlight. But I mean, it's also a Twitch stream green screen. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Is that's not exactly what this is because there is no. It's just the difference. You know what I mean? Because when I go over it and when I do like video stuff with it, there's no highlight. It's just how this particular program, because I'm doing it through Streamlabs, which is not the best.
Yeah, I can imagine.
How it like differentiates.
And Dead Phoenix. I mean, kinda, but imagine if the Taking 20 guy was like emotionally honest and could self-examine his own perspectives on the system. That's all that really's happened, but I guess we'll get to that one later. We wait for people to fill in.
Yeah. It's always hard when we have a good topic, because it's like,
yeah,
I want to talk about that right now.
Yeah, we know. Gotta let people file in. And I'm also just curious, because I'm halfway through the video, and so far it's stuff where I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, there's parts of the video where I'm like,
there's definitely one thing I'll give a slight spoiler, is he says that Pathfinder 2E is a lower high fantasy than D&D 5e.
That part I'm immediately like, I don't know, mate. That doesn't sound right.
It's quite the interesting take, to say the least.
I understand why he would think that. I don't agree. But based on like what he's saying and the impact from his player side, I understand.
I do like his biggest thing about the system is, man, this game just feels way less like overpowered in the player's favor for some reason. It's really funny. But then he's like, I don't know if it's a more balanced system.
Inherently, it would be then.
Yeah, right. That looks pretty okay. Maybe adjust the spill a little bit, but I think it's fine. It doesn't help I'm also wearing a kind of green shirt today.
That'll do it. I have my one shirt that if I ever wear, actually I guess two, because I have another shirt with some green elements. Just out. It's a really fun Godzilla shirt, but I have this one shirt. It's Garfield with a green background where saying when I die, I don't know if I'll go to heaven, I don't know if God lets cowboys in. And I really like the shirt, but it's like a hole in my chest whenever I turn the green screen on. Like
right, yeah.
So it's just like there's Garfield floating in the void on my chest.
Certain content creator problems where we're just like, I can't wear my favorite shirt because
I think it's a really funny shirt.
It doesn't work. My green screen, it's unfortunate, and I definitely want to get a nice image, but I don't know what image I want to put in the background yet. I kind of just threw something together because I was like, oh right, stream. I've been busy lately.
You have
in fact, 1 second, let me grab a soda.
I keep seeing on Twitter your efforts. I have also been busy for those in here, and those of you that are in my that are subscribed to me on YouTube. So if you subscribe to Glue Boy for 40k content, no video today. I'm super fucking busy, and I am exhausted. I'm holding it together, but I'm in that state where I'm really tired and like just physically, and I have more to do, so I can't like stop.
Yo, True King, thanks for the follow. I can turn my music up a little bit. Just like a hair. That's too loud. I wish there was, because in YouTube you can use the forward or back, not arrows, I guess they're the, like, greater than less than signs. You can use those to frame by frame videos. I wish you could do that, but with audio.
Yeah.
My lighting is a little atrocious. There's these shadows being cast on my face.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. I gotta fix that. But I at least got the green screen working, so...
You got the green screen working, and you got the air conditioning working. Which is the part I am really invested in.
True.
Because finally, I will step into your home.
On a hot day.
Yeah. I guess in the winter it doesn't matter, but in the summer, I will now willingly walk into your home.
That's fair. Oh, you know what? I bet it's the exposure. I'm wondering what's like desaturating my lighting, my scene, because I'm very like desaturated in color. It might be an exposure thing. I'm not sure.
It might be.
For the camera, it's not a great camera, to be fair.
Yeah.
I also don't know what I'm gonna do with this lighting, how it's gonna work, because I need the light on the green screen. But I can't. It's so bright. I can't put it like next to the green screen.
Yeah, that's the struggle. The like, I think if you want to have a perfect green screen setup, it's a 5-point light system, and that's for like perfect studio. You can make do with 3.
Oh no, there's a lot of YouTubers who do lighting really well.
Oh yeah, you can make it do, and it's always going to be dependent on your space. But like, at least, yeah, the setups I see, perfect studio green screen is 5-point lighting. In my garage currently, it's 4. We have 4. And then once we move it soon here, probably this weekend, after we record the next video, it'll still be the garage style stuff. In the next video, we're gonna move it, and everything should be just better quality.
Yeah, probably what I'll do is I might put a screen or something on this side, so I'll be shaded from the light over here, but I'll also have my front light. So I think that's what I'll probably end up going with. But yeah, let's talk about stuff recently. I'm gonna go first because man, it's been rough.
I keep seeing on Twitter that you talk about how exhausted you are.
Yeah, well, so I've recently been doing some handyman work and installing. Well, installing makes it sound way more professional than it is. I've been fumbling my way through building a shelf for my air conditioner in a space where we used to have a window, which I had to take out because it's so unfortunate. There's very few side opening windows in this entire place. One was the living room window, and the other's like in our bedrooms. All the other ones are vertical. And the air conditioner, where it's placed now, is the perfect place because it's kind of like centralized in the house. And it's a nice, decent one, has pretty high BTUs. And it's the perfect spot, but the window that it would have been placed in could not open enough for it to fit in. And if it was a vertical opening window, it would have been fine, but it wasn't. So I had to take out a whole window. But then there's the problem of there's no window. So I had to build a shelf and like a whole surround for it. Hey, Ak, how you doing? And I am not a handyman by any standard. The last time I worked with wood in any actual sense was back in high school.
Yeah, like a woodworking shop or something.
In wood shop.
Yeah.
And I also just don't have all the tools. Now, fortunately, my mother's helping out and She helped purchase. Actually, most of this stuff I ended up buying. She helped with a few things, but we ended up getting our deposit back from the apartments we were at before. So I put all that money towards this project, pretty much.
That helps.
Yeah, it was good. It was $200 towards everything, which was pretty much what I needed, honestly. Bought a reciprocating saw and some other tools. Have a drill set already. And so, yeah, it was just build a frame, put panels of plywood, and then put insulation inside, close off with panels. You know, it's not a very complicated project. The most complicated part is building supports. Because, you know, I have 2x4s, and I have to measure exactly, like, the angles I need to cut so that it can be a support for the air conditioner. I got that angle wrong. But it works. Ooh. It works. And actually, even better than that, because of how it had to be set, it actually pulled the shelf down a little bit, so it's slightly angled. But I've heard that you want your air conditioner slightly angled anyway to drain water outside of the house.
Oh yeah, that's true, because ACs will build up condensation.
So, in all honesty, it ended up helping out more than it hurt. So, but the problem is a reciprocating saw is really good at, some people call it the sawzall because it's good for cutting a lot of things. But it's good for cutting a lot of things that are secured. And I have nothing to secure anything. I ended up going out and buying some sawhorses and C-clamps, but the C-clamps weren't big enough to hold the 2x4s at the length I needed, because the blade I had wasn't long enough on the saw to cut through them normally, which I should have just gotten a bigger blade, but oh well.
Yeah.
I made it work, and I was able to do it for the most part, but I couldn't do it diagonally, because at any angle other than where the C-clamp is holding, the reciprocating saw is just gonna rip the clamps off, which happened a few times. I'm lucky I'm not injured at all.
From what that sounds like, yeah, man.
So what did I do? I had to saw it by hand with a saw.
Ooh.
And that sucks a lot.
That would.
And I did it. I did it for all the pieces. But then there's another part. Cutting the plywood, because I need to create panels for the plywood. I don't have like a saw table or any way or anything really to cut plywood on. So what I ended up using was a box cutter.
For plywood?
For plywood.
Huh. I'm surprised you're just completely fine and uninjured.
Well, why would a box cutter be dangerous?
I mean, you know, I don't imagine to have the greatest amount of control for cutting through plywood. As someone who's cut plywood before.
It wasn't really that bad. It was rough, though. My forearms hurt. I have calluses on my hands from holding the box cutter and forcing my way through the plywood. But it was the only way I was going to be able to cut the plywood in a straight enough fashion for what I needed it for. So it was just woodworking, but the hard way. That was the whole project. Yeah, and then I put in insulation. Everything's good. The only thing I really need to do is get some sealant and seal up some of the spaces around everything that I did, because it's not like flush 100%. Plus, you should use sealant anyway.
You should.
So I gotta go do that, but that will be at a later time. I gotta clean after all my mess. There's a lot of mess, I'll tell you.
That is fair.
I'm also horribly sunburned on, not horribly, I'm a bit sunburned on my calves, because I've been putting sunscreen on because I'm, you know, Irish and burn like crazy.
I feel that.
and I don't normally wear jeans, or don't normally wear not jeans. I don't wear jeans like all the time, but I had shorts on because my clothes were dirty and I just didn't have any clothes at the moment. And so I put on shorts, got myself all lathered up except for my legs. And so the back of my legs are now sunburned. But yeah,
unfortunate place for it.
It's fine. My pain tolerance is high enough that it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But it's still annoying. And so that's been my week. It was a 3-day project, and that probably should not have taken me 3 days. But I had to learn as I went and
that's
everything.
The problem.
Yeah.
I imagine if you had all the tools that would have made it much easier on you, and like even just like a basic know-how, probably would have taken a day and a half.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're learning it, YouTube, a handyman work. Like,
yeah, it was rough. I did vastly improve. Everything I worked on got better as I went, but it just took 3 days. And, you know, that's all I have. That's all I can say is that it took me 3 days. So there's not very much else to say about it, honestly. But yeah, so that was my week, and I ended up missing a video over it, which sucks.
Yeah.
But whatever, I'll be back tomorrow with a video.
Yeah, I feel that with because I'll be back in with my video Monday, and I normally would, which actually isn't the worst thing, because essentially it gives me if I don't like what my gut is like, you know, it'd be so nice, just hold off and wait and like just produce a video later instead of like keeping to my normal schedule but sticking to my release schedule. I'll have a little less work to do for the preemptive stuff to head over there, since I'll be gone for a week.
Yeah,
so
true.
My plan is to essentially just have videos scheduled the week before for that week, and I can just lay back, relax. And during like downtime over there, I was going to work on my big high effort 40K video I'm working on. I don't have any other scripts to write. All my videos are ready, so I might as well.
But what have you been working on, since you also have had stuff you've been doing?
Been dealing with roommates moving out, and then getting my girlfriend living with me now. We now are cohabitating, and we essentially, in the place we're at, we have 2 rooms now. One room for like our computers and stuff, and then the other just pure bedroom. It is shocking how much space my Warhammer shit and my computer took up.
Yeah.
Because currently there's a closet in our office that is full purely my 40K stuff. And so now there's just so much space. And my cat is overjoyed because she has so much room to like play and like do stuff. And now she has 2 windows she can look at the birds through. And then other than that, it's just been moving a lot of stuff, getting things ready, dealing with projects that I haven't dealt with because I'd have to coordinate it with 3 other people. And right now in the situation, I have to coordinate it with a single person, like when it comes to reorganizing living spaces and cleaning finally. So I got a good busy set of days in front of me, and I got to get it all done that I can today and tomorrow, because these are my days off work, and I'd rather not have to do massive cleaning efforts after work where I spend 6 hours cleaning.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of moving furniture, but now I can just kind of enjoy myself, and then tonight I'm gonna get a little bit more done. It's been a lot of effort, and a lot of effort where I'm like, I don't want to fucking sit down and edit. I have so much other shit to do. Besides, it might not fuck it up too bad. The next video is on the Emperor of Man, so it'll do good if it does good. We'll see.
True.
It's a part 2 video, so that's another wonder. I never made a part 2. I don't know the performance of like parts. I know part 1 is usually the most viewed if you do a series.
Yeah, well, it's because usually more people start, and then if they continue, they continue. If they don't, they don't. So, but it depends. Also, there's just sometimes the algorithm grabs one of them and pushes it to people, and they don't know why. See you in 9 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not that long.
It's not that long. We're gonna actually talk about it here, probably real soon. I don't really have too much to BS about at the moment, other than
Me neither. It's just been we've both been very productive for the past few days, and not completely towards content creation.
Yeah.
Productive in general life skills.
Yeah, it's like I have a house. I have house productivity. But yeah, other than, Rage of Elements coming out soon. I've unfortunately fallen down this Twitter line of the only Twitter things I make that people actually respond to are things about Rage of Elements.
I mean, people are excited about Rage Elements, but yeah.
Oh, hey, someone just shouted me out. Aww.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Just on Twitter.
On Twitter. But it's like Rage of Elements. It comes out, and ooh, here's an Elemental Barbarian. I want to know how accessibly I can be Heavy Metal Barbarian. Unfortunately, playing a metal doesn't quite work that way. Though I am a big fan of the Iron Juggernaut Barbarian build. That was a huge thing in Pathfinder First Edition. It's not as much of one now, but you could really easily still do something very similar.
Wait a second. I know that GIF. I know what fucking video that is. That's a metal song I really like. That's gonna be bothering me for a while now. God damn it. That's a power metal track that I really love.
What's my house producing? It's now producing BTUs. We got air conditioning. It's producing cold air now.
We need that. I mean, for people in chat, I've given Cam the request of I will not step into his home when we do our big visit hangout unless there's AC. I struggle in the heat. I'm so fucking bad with it. I get
you
really
moved to the wrong part of the
upset.
state for struggling with the heat.
Well, the thing is, I went to this part of the state, but I moved into a house with good AC.
Yeah. And to be fair, that side of the mountains has AC more often than not. So, over here, they're like, what's AC? I don't know. Most places don't have AC.
That's it. Okay. That GIF is the music video for Hearts on Fire by Hammerfall. That song rules. There we go. I've solved the puzzle for myself. That was bothering me.
All right, but we're about
everyone in there being like kineticist. Me too.
Kineticist, yeah. Everyone's super.
I want the metal kineticist, dude.
The Planet Metal is gonna be really good. I'm so stoked. It's very fortunate, too, because it's gonna be coming right around the time that we're gonna be getting started for Kingmaker. So possibility Kinesis character, though I might still do Alchemist just because people keep poo-pooing on Alchemist.
Depends. Do you pick a character if the kineticist is just that cool, or do you continue to pick Alchemist out of spite? For those who just don't get it.
It's literally the point. I honestly don't know which is stronger at this point. When Kinesis comes out, I'll find out.
Yeah.
But I am very stoked for trying to make Alchemist work really well, because Alchemist is such an interesting class because it's a class I have very little fantasy for. I don't have a lot of when I like make characters, when I try to make it think of something cool, it's never like alchemy never really comes in. I've never been into the alchemist style of characters typically. And it's not like
Yeah.
investigator, where investigator you can kind of change it into something else because of how the class mechanically works. Like investigator, you could play Sherlock Holmes, or you could play someone who's just a very methodical combat strategist if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Or an assassin, you know.
Or like any level of detective, cop, like there's a lot of stuff you can hit that I honestly feel the same. It's like I can much easier think of an investigator character that I think is interesting than I can an alchemist character. Because I think of an alchemist character, all I can think of is like bomber.
Right. Well, and it's just like in I mean, like what I said with investigator. Investigator mechanically can be done in different colors, but like, or in different like ways of looking at aesthetics. Alchemist just doesn't have that, because the thing is, you just do alchemy. That's your thing, you know?
Yeah.
Even inventor can kind of be changed a little bit aesthetically, because it can just be you're someone who has like a gun that you really like working on and like kitting out, you know? You're not necessarily mad scientist always pounding on the hammer, you know, in the back room kind of thing. Like mechanically, a lot of the other classes can be skinned very different ways, but alchemist is always just alchemist.
Yeah, because I think the only way you can hit that with alchemist is when you cross it with other things.
I did do a good one, but unfortunately he was a villain and it was Brandmaster.
Yeah, he's very powerful, but a powerful villain. I am curious, because the only time I can think of when I'm trying to expand my brain to come up with an interesting alchemist concept, all I can come up with is like, could you do something that's more Full Metal Alchemist?
Not really.
But I guess Kineticist would hit that more than
kind of
like what the at least. Because at least
depends.
With the powers from the show.
Because there's a lot of different character classes that could blend into it. Because alchemy is more like a magic power in Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, it's magic with like a hard science behind how it works.
Kind of even? Not really, because in practice, most of the time, it doesn't even matter. It's just whatever that person makes.
Yeah, just see God and then it doesn't matter.
Well, there's that, but there's also just like, alright, Ed's powers, right? Most of the time, it's just manipulating the metal on his arms or creating things out of like stone that it's already there. Like he's like essentially a bender, like an earth bender with metal bending powers. Most of the time, there's a few times where he uses alchemy like smart, like changing carbon's makeup to make Greed's armor less effective, stuff like that.
Or the time they used the components of a body to make a fake burn corpse.
Mm-hmm. But like that's most of the time that doesn't play into how Ed fights or anything like that, you know. Mustang's a really good example. All he does is makes fire.
I like Mustang. He's just simple. He just snaps and fire comes out.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not poo-pooing on the characters or anything.
No, yeah.
It's just like it's not quite the same. Al can use alchemy without a circle, so he can do anything other characters needing stuff like. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I understand the premise of it. But I'm saying like it's the science alchemical part doesn't come up that often, honestly. But yeah, having a really cool alchemist fantasy, I think it's definitely possible. Because Alchemist is genuinely very strong. I'm actually planning on doing soon a top 5 combat characters, and Alchemist makes it into the top 5.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've mentioned how they can get fucking cracked.
Well, the thing is, Alchemists is like a wizard but better in a sense, because they can just anything that's in their alchemy book they can just make. And I'll tell you, there's a butt ton of alchemical items in the game, like a metric ton, and they can solve so many issues. They can attack any kind of enemy weaknesses. They're very strong. Their sheer damage output is kind of lackluster, but it's made up for the sheer dynamicism. And also they have one of the best tank builds with a regenerating Juggernaut build, so. I love mutagens, by the way. If I am going to do Alchemist, it'll probably be a mutagenist. Though there has been some interesting... there is a Mad Dr. Kyurgen build that I think would also be interesting.
There's definitely very cool ones you can come up with. I think it'd be interesting. The most I could think of for Alchemist that's not just Mad Bomber is, I think, no, damn, it's also melding with Inventor, I guess. But having a character that is, because I always think it's fun in tabletop games, especially specifically like D&D or Pathfinder, to have a character that rejects the notions of like magic and their sources. As in, like, the closest you could understandably get to a atheist in Galarian or Faerun.
Yeah, which is possible. There is a...
Oh, yeah. It's possible. It's always a thing where I think it's interesting, specifically because, like, it's an objective fact that gods exist. But
atheists are kind of different in the setting, because they don't pray to any gods, is what being an atheist is.
It's the same way that Pillars of Eternity did it, because Pillars of Eternity also has a large subject of atheism, and a lot of it is the pure rejection of gods as a concept because you think it's awful and you don't like the practice. Like, that's the method. I think it's really interesting, and having a character, and there's also the magical reject background. And building a character that's very science-based in a world that isn't completely would be really interesting.
I also want to make a DPR style Alchemist, because people also get super upset because Alchemist just doesn't do damage. So I'll make one that does damage, because you definitely can easily.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. But hey, let's talk about the Puffin Forest video since everyone's here. And our good friend Plain Loud has come back after watching the video. Well, I believe there is a question mark in the title, if I'm not mistaken.
That's the question of the stream. That's the clickbait.
Because I do think it's a redemption in the fact that he changed his mind on generally Pathfinder, but he's still very wrong in some places. But all right, so why is this important? Let's establish that for people who might not be familiar. Puffin Forest was one of the first big content creators to talk about Pathfinder 2e. I don't remember if his video came before or after the Taking 20 debacle, but it was in the same general time period. And at that time, he was saying, to put it crudely, Pathfinder math too hard. I don't understand too many numbers.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago when he did his first Pathfinder 2nd edition video.
And it wasn't necessarily an inflammatory video. He wasn't necessarily saying that it was a bad game, but he was making the game appear to be so complicated that it would throw people off. We just started talking about it. Unicats? There you go. And it hurts because, there's a lot of people who are generally new to Pathfinder. or to tabletop in general, and they're gonna look at it and be like, oh, this game's really complicated. I'll tell anyone right now, if you play Pathfinder First Edition, I would have had no argument to make. Pathfinder First Edition is very much Mathfinder. It's very much getting all the various numbers, and there's so many different bonuses, and the math is just complicated and janky. Is it a fun game? Yeah, totally. And if you enjoy complicated games, then it's a game for you. Pathfinder 2nd Edition, though, is such a far cry from that and is so much better put together that it is super disingenuous to make it out as anything more complicated.
Yeah, it's not a super complex game, but I'll say that for Flame Lad, like I can see why you'd say the opinion of him hasn't changed much, especially with like the path builder point. But I also completely agree that path builder makes my life easier, because I am also of the camp where Pathfinder has too many moving parts in character creation where it just is a blocker in my head of figuring it out. I am purely of the notion of using character generator, character creator programs, because I'm just a dumb smooth brain, and I can't like sit down and parse through like a bunch of different rules and text. So having it all mapped out through a tool like that makes it indispensable. But yeah, also another thing in the chat, I also don't firmly believe Puffin Forest is a great reviewer. Only because, like, yeah, you dig through some of the stuff, it's just very clear there's a misunderstanding of rules.
Yeah, but that's the problem, right?
It just happens.
He's not, but he's still a big content creator, and when you don't know anything about tabletop in general, and you like his content, that's just the kind of stuff that might sway someone's opinion. It's kind of like the whole Mr. Rex thing, where I literally had people come in my videos and say, "Thank you so much for making this video." I saw his video and was kind of left dubious. Not sure I wanted to try it. But when I saw this, you laid it out and you made me understand more, and I'm excited to try Pathfinder. Which shows like why it's necessary to make videos competing against this. But you know, in Puffin Forest's newest video, he's like, we tried it again, and you know what? I've been enjoying it. And there's some things that he mentions I think are really good. There's just like that I'm mixing myself up because there's so much to talk about, but Puffin Forest's biggest thing that he said that I think is really good and really like embodies Pathfinder, there are certain encounters that work in Pathfinder that just can't be done in 5th edition. And it's due to the strategic and the like 3 action systems, essentially. Like he was talking about how in 1st edition Pathfinder, when a snake bit you, it didn't do a lot of damage, but you became poisoned, and it wasn't something that could just be cured away by a healer. And so when a character gets bitten by a snake, it's like they were actually bitten by a snake. You know, it's something where they get bitten, and they go to the first level of the poison, and they take damage. Healer can heal that, but then the next round, if they fail their check, the poison can get worse and they can take more damage, making it feel like a character is healing them, but they're getting worse still. And that's really cool in tabletop, because that's something that's very hard to recreate.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. Pathfinder has so many different types of encounters and things you can run into, and Pathfinder makes non-combat things legitimately worth investing into on the player end of things.
It is very good at doing that. It's the thing where his perspectives on the game and how he runs them, like all that, because I think it's also true. He's also just a person who's not he's not an expert at tabletop games. He's charismatic, has a lot of fun with it, and makes entertaining videos. I used to watch him. I don't anymore because I don't watch tabletop content. It's not my thing. I just want to watch my weird history and philosophy video essays. That's all I care about. Um, I think what people should go into Puffin Forest, and I hope that's something that most people do. I don't expect to be the case. I think it's a good case study and thing of an average table picking up like Pathfinder for the first time. They're making mistakes that I think are understandable for a group of people who are all learning a system together and like figuring it out. Because there are rules in there and like stuff where he says, can the bonuses stack on each other? And people in the comments like, no, they don't. It's not true. I was just piecing through the last Pathfinder stuff. Or here's some rules that rubbed us differently. He isn't like the diagonal movement deal because it's built for like a hex system. I also think it's stupid, but whatever.
I agree.
It's
I also
built for
don't
that.
use the diagonals rules at all.
Yeah, it's dumb, but it's the thing of I understand why those rules would be tougher for a new person to learn because you have a lot of other shit you're juggling. I think taking him on the account of like a professional tabletop reviewer, like an expert in it, is not the way to go. But viewing it as a group who are engaging with something for the first time and trying to figure it out and enjoying it, I think is a different lens that it should be engaged with.
Right.
Because
I
other
agree.
than that, it's fair. It's just the problem inherently in doing that is because he's a large creator, people put that lens of professionalism or that lens of expertise onto him. And I'm not saying that's a reason for us to not make his point or even discuss it. That's not my point. I mean people who are thinking about playing Pathfinder for the first time and looking into it and being like, oh, he obviously knows what he's talking about. Where it's like, no, I think it's just a good example of the process of learning a game for the first time and the things that you mesh into, the things you like and the things you don't like, and then figuring out what meshes with you if your table picks it up.
Well, it's also just a thing of people talking like they know speaking in a way as if they know a system when they don't. And that happens a lot.
It does happen.
They just make just straight statements about things. Like Mr. X did this all the time in his video where he's just like, it works like this, and then it's like, no, it doesn't actually. Rather than be like, I feel like this rule, maybe we're getting it wrong, I'm not sure, but this was our experience. Like, when you say things like that, it makes people understand at least that you're not sure. But like Puffin Forest, he said one thing in his newest video, which blew me away as just being a ludicrous statement, which is, it's a lower fantasy setting. It's a lower fantasy like game than 5th edition, which I'm sure is what he was comparing it to. And then I have absolutely zero understanding as to why he thinks that way. Other than, I guess, if you're just used to the broken builds of 5th edition, where characters within like 5 levels can break the game super hard and do absolutely bonkers stuff, then I guess, yes, I can understand the problem. But saying it's less fantasy is by no means like accurate. And
yeah, that part is weird because I think his point that it's a really strange way of putting it. I think his point is that like some parts of 5th edition that are busted really strong just aren't. Like you're not gonna have any big explosive ability in Pathfinder. Is like he specifically comparing 5e and Pathfinder magic, which I prefer Pathfinder magic because at least you have things that happen if you fail the dice or they succeed. But like it seems like his point is some things are just weaker in the player's favor.
No, Unicats, I'm saying Mr. Rex. Rex, R-H-E-X. X, I think.
Yeah, we're just picture Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. Every
Yeah.
time you mention that.
We're not talking about Tekken 20, dude.
No. Which that guy already has a worse reason if you intentionally misrepresent Pathfinder in that aspect because you don't want to learn it, don't want to engage with it because of your ego. It's a whole different fucking beast. That is embarrassing to have come out.
Yeah, and also like even if he meant Flame Loud, like he meant power wise, I also just strongly disagree. characters in Pathfinder get redonkulously powerful towards the later game in comparison to like the setting, right? That's just something to consider as well. But like, for instance, a level 10 character is able to accomplish skill checks that normal people, creatures could not even imagine. If a character gets Titan Wrestler, a like 3-foot gnome can pretzel knot a troll with athletics. It's crazy.
It is nuts.
Now, I will agree that Pathfinder does not have things in it that allow you to, like, I don't know, infinite wizards. There's no infinite wizard hack in Pathfinder like there is in D&D. Or characters with 30 AC that can't be damaged by even a dragon, right? Where in Pathfinder, like, technically you can have a 30 AC, but a dragon is still likely going to hit you. Hey, Black Ouroboros, what's up? There's also like the thing where his players were not excited about their characters or anything like that, and I'm just like, how? I'm excited about my characters getting to like level 5 or 6, like.
I also, because I assume his players are largely 5e related. And like 5e levels are fucking boring.
They are. They're tragically boring. Now, I can definitely understand his desire. He did say in his video that he prefers System Light, which, you know, makes sense when you think about Puffin Forest, honestly. And honestly, I'm all for it. If you're the kind of person who is swapping games all the time, which he seems to be, never has any or too many like long-running games, System Light is really the way to go. Honestly, like Monster of the Week, after we've been playing it a bit, legitimately really fun, and I feel like there's definitely certain roles characters can play. I feel like I feel like characters are a lot more differentiated than they were in like Blades in the Dark was, for instance.
Yeah, I made the statement that making a build wasn't as possible in Monster of the Week, and I disagree with myself. That's not true. There's a lot of shit you can do. It's because I'm also a person. I prefer Rules Light. Specifically because Rules Light appeals to my playstyle. I want roleplay over rules, and I really don't like it when I'm trying to do some fun roleplay thing or like cool narration, and then the rules get in the way. Cause I'm like, I just want to fucking tell a story. I just want to like narrate. But like, I understand you can have your preference, but on the other hand, Pathfinder's just cool. It's objectively fun and not as crunchy as he makes it out to be. Though I think it's firmly, if somebody is Rules Light fan and perpetually 5e pilled, I think everything is crunchy when you play a game that actually has rules.
I'll be right back.
Oh god. Yeah, literally exactly Dead Phoenix. It's 5e's Rules Light if you haven't played anything else. But yeah, it's like that part specifically is the part that is interesting. I understand a lot of his perspectives, and I think for the most part, especially early on, he does do a good job at not sounding insanely objective. I think a lot of it is very clearly his opinion, or should be taken as his opinion. And every take he had in this like video were moments where I'm like, I understand why you think that, but like I don't agree. I don't agree with the whole like. I also just don't see why his players would be like not excited for leveling up in Pathfinder fucking rules. Yeah, I mean, 5e is fun if you can have a full party spec'd out and you're basically playing a party rather than a character. But also, Celeste is held back because it's still based on 5e rules, which are just boring. There's not a lot of stuff to do there. Yeah, like, we had our friend group. We've had fun with Solasta, and a lot of it for me when we're playing Solasta is more of the fact that I'm having fun hanging out with my friends over the fact that I'm playing a good video game. I'm not completely enjoying myself in the game, but I'm enjoying the company of my friends.
Talking about 5e?
Solasta.
Oh, I mean, same thing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's and I think Flamelad also made a mention. Oh, it's a Black Ouroboros and Flamelad, whereas like Puffin Forest made it seem like battles were a very long, drawn out thing in Pathfinder for some reason.
That's true.
Which is just not the case.
That feels like it's a weird extrapolation of, yeah, these battles are so long and drawn out for a party and a group that is admitted learning the system together over the course of a year. Of course it's going to be long and drawn out. You're learning the game.
True.
That's not a part of the design. That's just you not being as like well regimented in the rules. That's to be expected.
But it's I'm glad that he's enjoying the system, and I'm glad that he's seeing what makes Pathfinder good, which is that you can have just more technical encounters that you can overall like make interesting scenarios in, right? It's interesting because there's different things you can do rather than in D&D 5e, where it's literally I run up and I hit the monster, or I run up and I interact with the object I need to interact with in this scene. In Pathfinder, you can run up, interact with the object, and still get a shot off. You know, your standard action isn't so limited. And yeah, and that's about accurate. The average combat in Pathfinder 2nd edition is 3 to 5 rounds, in that range.
Yeah, true. Because what? I mean, 4th edition is the one that was always claimed to have the really long combats.
And I don't know. It was very interesting because a lot of the imagery he was using and everything like that when he was talking about like the differences in combat was he made it like 5th edition combat is all about killing large groups of enemies. I'm like, if you're a spellcaster, maybe. I don't know about if you're a fighter or even a paladin, really, you know?
Yeah,
like,
not really.
And I think it's just like he just has spellcaster brain rot from 5e, where in 5e spellcasters can do dumb amounts of damage to large groups of enemies.
Yeah, I mean, he literally says it's like spells in 5e are really big and punchy, and they're balanced with Constitution, like, and you know,
concentration.
Keeping your concentration. Yeah. And then like for Pathfinder, it's all like slow buildup of little things. And it's like I think it's just you aren't casting the big fun spells in Pathfinder, my man.
Well, I don't even think it's that. It's like Bless, right? Bless is a small spell as far as effect is concerned. It gives everyone a +1 to hit into damage. And while that's good, I mean, it's really good if you consider the chance to crit. It's not like super big and flashy, but it's really good, and you just have to use it once, and then you can expand the aura as an action if you choose. There's no need to like sustain or anything like that. But there's like, you're playing a harder hitting wizard. It might not give damage. I might be thinking of a different spell, or the bard's inspire courage, which might be the case. Same general premise, though. It doesn't really matter. But you've been using like the big spells like rupture or whatever.
Yeah.
Big area damage, does split damage, so enemies who might be resistant to physical or fire get still hit with it. There's all kinds of things as well. And the thing with Pathfinder's spells that I find more interesting is their spells oftentimes do more than just damage. There's always some extra effects added on top of them. making them good at damaging enemies, but also debuffing them simultaneously.
Yeah, and there are the occasional, like, pure damage. Like, obviously, Fireball just does damage, but I have so many that are, like, inflict slow and does a little bit of damage. Or, like, inflict stupefy and does some damage. Like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it makes casting the spells, like, I have a big spell list full of variant damage, but I have a lot of options for that. Because, like, oh, yeah, would this status effect be really helpful on this? Or do I want to pump out pure damage? Or do I know that there's a damage weakness here, so I could hit with this, like, to do more damage, or I could hit with this. Like, you have, like, a lot more options. Because I play 2 spellcasters, one in 5e, one in Pathfinder. And I'll say I'm more interested in my Pathfinder spellcasting.
I'm more interested in any Pathfinder character than 5e, just because you can do literally more. Like,
yeah. I mean, if I wasn't playing in my game that's been completely changed 5e from Q, I'd feel the same.
Yeah.
His higher level, like, actually fucking feel like they're higher level. There's so much extra shit you can do, but that's not the standard for 5e.
Right. And that's kind of that's a big 5e problem, is 5e is the best game ever when it's properly homebrewed.
When someone has made it the best game ever.
Which is like saying Skyrim is the best game ever made when it's properly modded.
Yeah, literally my modded experience right now where I'm like, damn, this game's so good. And it's like, no, it's not. My mods are good.
That's anima. Man, this game's so good. No, my anima is good. The game is actually not that great.
And I can also say I really like Skyrim while looking at my mod nexus, like, I think with over 100 mods.
Yeah. And Black, you might be right. It might literally just be they're still not playing the game right, which, to be fair, like, I will state this, right? In all complete honesty, Pathfinder is a game that takes months, if not like a year, to get down very solidly. And that's if you're the GM and you're trying to. From a player perspective, it can take even longer if you don't have a good GM guiding you. Because there's just a lot of things, and when you play the game for the first time, you're like, this enemy becomes stupefied, and you're like, what does stupefy do? Because you don't know, and you have to look it up, and then everything does something. What does clumsy do? What does enfeeble do? What is a quickened action? Does a quickened action mean I can't use... If 2 things give me quickened actions, can I do them both? There's so many questions a new person would have to the game that... Oh, there's a lot of chat going by Flame Loud, so I apologize if we missed it. That it is a difficult game at first. Once you know the game, it's so easy to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Because it's like, alright, so how do I build a character? Well, unless you're a spellcaster, you really don't have that much to worry about. You might take, like, some athletics feats if you're investing in athletic, or you might take, like, some intimidation feats if you're going into intimidation. But other than that, it's like, alright, I intimidate the enemy to frighten them, which reduces their AC by 1, and their saves and everything else, but, like, anyone only ever cares about the AC drop, honestly. And I go and I hit the enemy. Or I use deception. It's against their perception DC, and I feint the enemy to make them flat-footed. If you know what flat-footed is, you know, like, half of what Pathfinder 2e does in combat situations more often than not. Enemy is prone, they're flat-footed. They also have a penalty to their attacks, but, you know, flat-footed.
Flat-footed's like the best thing ever. And yeah, I think that's something that's also brought up, with conditions being a thing. Because, yeah, specifically in the video, he says, like, tracking the conditions is something, and I think he mentions he lessens them a little bit and, like, finds a way to manage it. I think from what it seems like, at least with the art he's saying, it seems like he's playing it in pen and paper, like, on, like, a table, which, that I understand, because I'm picturing all of our Roll20 stuff. And if we didn't have the little pips, like, remember status effects, I'd be fucked, dude. I think Puffin Forest's video is a really good examination for me of me if I was DMing Pathfinder and learning it through DMing. I think I would be very similar because I'm also fucked up. by like learning Pathfinder. It's really difficult, and I only am able to learn it because you, Cam, are like so invested in it and understand it really well. That's what's helped. But like, yeah, running it through that, I understand. I understand the hurdles because a lot of the hurdles he mentions with Pathfinder were mine. My exact same problems. The only difference is I had someone who really fucking understood it and really enjoyed it to help me go past the hurdle. So like maybe that's the problem why he still has that issues. He doesn't have you, like someone like you who loves Pathfinder, Cam.
Right. That's the thing, right? Is and it's understandable. I think Pathfinder is a game that requires some know-how from at least someone, preferably the GM, to make it work really well. It's not a hard game, and most of my players who, range and level of how into tabletop they are or are not, got the game relatively quickly,
Yeah.
And while I helped with a lot of that for sure, it is not that difficult of a game, honestly.
I would call it one of the easier games. I mean, I love Anima, and I think Anima is a harder system.
It's way harder. There's a lot of games I'd say are way harder than Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Just for a lot of reasons, but it's a really simple game because actions really blend down to just a few things. Although, what's this? I'm very curious. Recall knowledge is a weak point, and someone else mentioned it earlier, but for some reason my stream chat thing here is not pulling up everything. Ripped off Lancer for recall knowledge. But like, how is recall knowledge a weak point? Because I think it is one of the more interesting points in 2nd edition that are really good, honestly. Other than maybe recall knowledge can be confusing what you need to roll for some creatures, which I understand that completely.
That makes sense because some of the tags are different, and there are a lot of times when I hear a name and I'm immediately thinking of other fantasy settings, and I'm like, oh, this would be right, and it's like, no, it's this. It's like, oh,
well, occultism is a big one because everyone's like, occultic, yeah. Okay, what magic are they using? Roll occultism. They're not using an occult spell, it's an arcane spell.
Yeah, that also, yeah, occultism. And I mean, Roll20, it works for us. We've done Foundry. It just needs to get set up again. A lot of life shit's got in the way of setting up Foundry.
I've just been so busy, and I have to re-put everything on Foundry again.
That's honestly the sad part, like resetting it.
Also, Roll20 is not that bad.
I agree.
I think everyone just enjoys hating on Roll20.
I understand that there are problems with Roll20, and there are parts of Foundry that are objectively better. The character sheet for Foundry is objectively better, especially on the spell slot, like spell side. That one is so much better. But also, like, Roll20, it works. It's what we need it to be. It's a grid table with tokens, which is at the end of the day what most of the players at the table need. Because a lot of us too, we just need that because we need that visual element to even understand and track what's happening. I wish it had all the cool, fun, like fancy tools of Pathfinder, like on Foundry, but I mean, works just fine. I still enjoy showing up to sessions, regardless of what, like whatever site we're using.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I generally agree. It's fine. It doesn't have extra functionality that makes it that much better. But, the Pathfinder 2 e-sheet works pretty decently. And
it serves its purpose. It's not amazing or anything, but it works.
I think it's pretty good. The way you can equip items, unequipped items, all that kind of stuff is really good. I wish the spell section was a little bit more cleaner or had, like, tabs you could open or close.
That's my hurdle when I say it's not great, because I have to interact with that part constantly.
That part is pretty rough, honestly.
Yeah.
But it generally works pretty well.
I still think it works. I also just think Foundry has a lot of better tools, like, the cones and lines actually having grid stuff for them. And being able to, do the fun click on an enemy and do the attack that way is way better. It's way cooler. But it works. I prefer Foundry, but Foundry is also a lot more effort to set up.
It's definitely changed since 2020. So, Flame Out, which it'll probably show up here in a moment. But, so the recall knowledge stuff, it's vague. It leaves GMs unsure what to do, or sometimes raw makes it hard time using it. If you're talking about against creatures, Archive of Nethys has all the what works for it / you know, whatever on it. So Archive of Nethys can be your best friend. Also, it does tell you the categories. I will say it can be a little vague sometimes, but not really. It's a pretty concise system.
I also just don't understand, because like I've never had a problem with recall knowledge. I've never had a hurdle other than just like figuring out which knowledge check to use. But other than that, it's like more of a question of does my character have a skill set that would pertain to the situation or creature, rather than like me actually like confused.
I guess if it's what information you give, that's where recall knowledge gets a little vague.
That is fair.
I agree. Honestly. There probably should be some better rules written out for that. Like, I can tell you what I do, but that doesn't make it any easier to learn or not for other people. Does it even have all the rule stuff for Pattern? The worst part of her playing 5e is the class I wanted to play. It wasn't built for me. We don't play. It has everything for Pathfinder 2nd edition. It's a little annoying because the feats in the advanced player's guide don't pull over onto your sheet, which is ass, honestly, and shouldn't be a thing, but it's there. But everything else that has come out after the advanced player's guide has been on there, and so I'm sure once the remaster stuff comes on, it'll be there. Yeah, no, a lot of people are like, man, roll 23 years ago sucked. Don't get me wrong, I do think Foundry is potentially better when you understand and get it. It's kind of like the Pathfinder of tabletop or VTTs. So I get that for sure. But being a new person getting into Foundry and trying to set everything up, it has been a bit hell, honestly. It's a little rough sometimes. Roll20 is very easy to use, but I do admit Foundry is probably just better in every way once you understand what's going on.
I'll also say, Roll20 doesn't eat all of my, or Foundry doesn't eat all of my RAM, like Roll20 does whenever dynamic lighting's turned on. I have a beefy computer, so I don't know why that just kills my performance.
Yeah, I don't know. Roll20 is like that, but Foundry can also be like that sometimes too, which is very strange. I don't know, honestly.
Tabbing out for a Foundry is hard and kind of kills some performance, but that's just it's using too many background resources.
Yeah. Let's see here. Everyone's just talking about Foundry stuff right now. But yeah, vague in the sense of what information you give, and I agree. It is vague, and there should be rules for that. You know, funny enough, after playing Wrath of the Righteous and Kingmaker, it actually makes recall knowledge easier to understand, because in Path of the Righteous or Kingmaker, if your character succeeds on their roll to recall knowledge on a creature when you engage them the first time, you learn like how much HP they have, what their tags are, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's very interesting. It's also one of the things I really dislike in Pathfinder 2nd edition. There are a lot of secret checks in the game, and secret checks are super annoying to play by the book, because there's so many, and it's not, the player doesn't roll for secret checks. The GM rolls and then tells the player what they know or don't know for like recall knowledge, which is a secret check. Well, okay, Uni and Cats, it's because I say this as, for people who are very computer illiterate, Foundry might not be that difficult. But not everyone who plays tabletop is very computer literate. And some people might extremely struggle with it. So something like Foundry might be a little too much for people like that. And Roll20, which is a lot more just laid out, honestly, is a lot simpler in many ways.
The process of if I was setting up a Foundry game from just watching Cam do it is like, that's too much for me. I'd give up very quickly and just like, this is too much work. I just want to play fucking tabletop. Roll20 is easy. You can just smack some things together and boom, you have your game.
And I know some people who are also really good at Roll20 who can turn into a very different experience. And so it's just like, it's hard to know.
When you really know any form of system, you can make it just whatever you want. Just gotta exactly know how it works. I assume the same thing of seeing someone who'd be a god at setting up a Foundry stuff and utilizing the tool to like enhance the game. That'd be nuts.
Yeah. And yeah, secret checks, I'm just not a big fan because there's so many, and it just takes dice out of the player's hand and makes the DM do a lot more stuff. And I feel like it's something that when the player isn't rolling and seeing their results for their own checks, it is not giving them the proper feedback on how things are working. Even though I understand that, you know, if a player gets a critical failure and gets wrong information, well, metagame, they know they got it wrong. But they gotta have that responsibility in character to, you know, to play it out correctly. But there's just so much where like recall knowledge is like, hey GM, what do I know about this? GM rolls for you, tells you what you know about that. There's not a lot of feedback that the player gets on that end other than they'll probably know, you know, rather than if the character rolls and rolls really well, they know what they're getting is accurate and they can confidently play with that information, you know. It's just more confusing. I don't use secret checks for literally anything. I leave it to my players to understand. And when I tell my players incorrect information, sometimes I just tell them correct information. You get a crit failure, sometimes I'll just tell you something on the character sheet. Because if you don't believe me instantly then, you're gonna be surprised. We're like, oh, that's how it was? Really?
Yeah, it leaves that like, ooh, is it right or not? It makes more sense. It's like a crit fail of now you have information, like, because if it's always a lie, then it's like, okay, yeah, that's a lie, I'll just ignore that. Or even, oh, I'll just do the opposite then for the lie. But if it's like almost like a toss-up, is it real, is it not, then it's the problem of like acting on wrong information. You'd be like, this could be right, this could be wrong, let me try.
Yeah.
It leads to cooler interactions in game.
So I don't use secret checks, but, you know, to each their own. What's easier to set up and run, Pathfinder with pen and paper or Pathfinder 2 on virtual tabletop? It depends how in-depth the game you're running is. If it's a session 1, everyone meets in the tavern and the adventure gets started, it might be easier to do on pen and paper. If it is we're running through a whole dungeon, there's drawing a map or there's spending $4 to get a map on Roll20 or some other site and just plopping that down in front of your players, you know. So it can depend.
I personally lean on VTTs, to be honest, only because it works for my brain better. I'm really bad as a purely in the realm of imagination player, especially running through combats and such, like through pen and paper.
And definitely, I will agree, Starfinder's character sheet on Roll20 is god-awful and really bad. And that's kind of the thing with Roll20 in general. If the system is loved, it gets lots of love on the system. If it's not very loved, it gets the very big. Like playing a Lancer sheet on Roll20 was miserable. Playing on Foundry was substantially better.
It was so much fun. Like, it was like we were playing a tactics game, like a video game on Foundry. It was so cool.
I mean, you know, Silver, that to each their own. Some players prefer rolling their dice. Some players absolutely hate it when the GM has to roll for them. They feel like it removes their agency.
I just like, yeah, because I've never had to deal with that secret check because you don't use it, and I only play Pathfinder with you. But like, I agree with that take, and you know, I'd also be like, man, it doesn't feel like I'm doing much when I just ask for like that, and you just kind of roll yourself. It doesn't feel like I'm the cool one. It feels like just my character happened to know this information.
Yeah.
It feels like there's that level of like, that's me who did it.
And Silver, I know you asked this question earlier and it was answered before, but I'll answer it here. No, there's no microtransactions. Besides some stuff, but most of the time, not really. If it's like, there's a very few kinds of like mods, or maybe it's like a map pack or something like that, then that is a microtransaction. But if it's just Pathfinder that you want, you know, all the bells and whistles, hell, even most of the mods that make it run really well, once you buy it, it's free, and it's free forever. Yeah, I did see that, and I do find that interesting. I like how they have that. I still wouldn't use it, though. I still wouldn't use it because, again, I don't think it gives proper player feedback when you do it, secret checks. Because when I say it's taking dice out of the hands, I think you're all thinking way too literally about like the act of rolling dice and the player. I'm talking about the player rolling the dice, seeing what they got, and like having full agency about their what they did or not, you know.
Yeah, it's the act of like, if your DM is just like, yes, you did a thing, it's like, yeah, cool, okay, the DM let me do it. If I roll good enough and something good happens, I did it. I won. I succeeded. I'm cool. Like, that's the difference.
Right. And like I said, it creates these this level of uncertainty. Why would a player use an action that they don't know is a success or not, right? Like, they could be playing and then they just need to crit fail once and get wrong information, and they're like, well, I don't know, I don't want to use recall knowledge because if I get it wrong, I have no way of knowing the information I got was right or not, you know. I enjoy more the act of the mind game of me telling them information. They know they got a crit fail and having to parse out whether it's right or not, which is exactly what happens on a crit fail, which is you don't know if the thing you're telling everyone is true or not, and you're very unsure of yourself.
It's even better when it's like you give a chunk of info and it's like some could be right, some could be wrong, because then it feels also justified in universe. Like, maybe your character is an expert in some like scholarly field, but for a specific subject matter, they heard somebody make like a fucking random claim, like a source, I made it the fuck up situation, and then they kind of just ran with it, never checked, which is a thing that happens in real life. It's like, yeah, sometimes people just are wrong about information, they propagate it, and then it spreads. And then like in those crucial moments, you make that snap judgment, and you're like, yeah, I heard this before, I read this in a book. And like, little did you know, the book was half right, and that had a lot of stuff wrong about it. Like, it leads to more interesting interactions on the table. I am playing a character that does a lot of recall knowledge checks because smart wizard.
I mean, the same thing can happen either way. Like I said, it's just it's harder for a player to justify really diving into recall knowledge when they never know what's coming up, even if they're right most of the time. It's like, You have 100 cups of some liquid in front of you. One of them contains deadly poison that'll kill you instantly. I'll give you $100, you know, kind of situation. Most of the time they'll live. But when it's really bad, and I'm not saying that obviously failing one recall knowledge is equivalent to dying, but it's the same premise because people have a strong negativity bias.
People just don't like failing at the end of the day.
You know,
You build your
where
character
if they
to do
succeed and
cool
crit
stuff.
succeed, I mean, they should feel confident in those checks because their characters would. So
Yeah, I mean, you especially you should, because if the character you're making is a character that will doing recall knowledge checks, like I'm a scholar in these arts, they should, in multiple aspects, feel confident to make that check, because the character would be. They studied it.
I mean, in that's just what I'm saying, right? To each their own. Y'all can play exactly how you want to play. That's just how secret checks work. I have my reasons for it, so you can take that as my opinion, and you can choose to disagree with it. It's all fair.
I can understand the points being made here about liking secret checks, but I didn't know that's how recall knowledges were done initially, to be honest. And hearing it, I'm like, I prefer rolling myself for it. I think it's cooler.
Yeah, I just find it works better. Yeah, that's definitely something that's more of a table thing. Unless you have like pogs or tokens that are very clearly one thing or another, you know. On Roll20 or any site, and I'll say Foundry to not get people upset. People will see it and be like, they know it's a troll or not a troll. But like, that's a fun theater of the mind situation because, you know, the players just don't know. It's great. That's one of the benefits of theater of the mind is you can throw things on the map that necessarily the players should know, but their characters don't, so you get to play up the mystery of it. Because there are some very wild creatures in like both D&D and Pathfinder that we become so accustomed to that we don't really think about it. But when it's theater of the mind and they don't get to exactly see it or any of its features, they're like, what is this thing? It's just crazy. Until they do something very much like that thing. Like the big green creature suddenly starts regenerating the arm that you cut off. It's like, ah, it's a troll. Okay, I understand now. But yeah, I guess to kind of come back around to the Puffin Forest video, it's tragic that there's just not many big content creators that know a lot about Pathfinder. And I get so frustrated every time because literally there's even the ones who are trying to like play up Pathfinder will complain about things that are such non-issues in the game that it just creates the very wrong impression for people. Like there's this guy, oh goodness. He was the one who was really taking to it. I know his name, but I have forgotten it. Crap. Something dungeon, but that doesn't narrow it down that much.
No, that sounds like every tabletop channel. I'll have dungeon or dice somewhere in their name.
And he was just like, I don't like how Pathfinder does not have a very clear encounters per day system. And so I made an encounter that was just too much for them because I didn't understand how it works, or yada yada yada. DM Slayer? I think it was DM Slayer, actually. And he was just really upset about saying, like, Pathfinders doesn't have a really good encounters per day system like you do in D&D. And it's like, no, you're just looking at it from the wrong perspective. In Pathfinder, generally considered, yeah, it's by each encounter, is the party capable of handling this encounter or not. There's not very many limited resources that your party has, so it doesn't matter how many encounters until you have like a spellcaster in it, right? And then all you have to do is just be like, okay, if every combat is lasting 3 to 5 rounds in that range, then a lower level spellcaster is going to struggle after just one combat. But a higher level spellcaster will still at least have some things they can throw, and because of how scaling cantrips work, they still got damage, even if, you know, they're kind of out of spell slots. So it's never a how many encounters thing, because the whole point of running dungeons is not necessarily to run your characters down on like resources. It's not a resource game in the sense, it's just how challenging is the combat. Do your resources play into it? Yeah, totally. You can definitely take things like healing potions or the like into consideration.
It makes sense. I mean, obviously it's something I've never considered or thought about, because I engage with Pathfinder purely on a player perspective. But I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It seems like that's a common thing, because I assume that's also a consideration of encounters per day. Running down the resources is a big 5e tactic, because
it is. That's how you run 5e.
So it's people coming in like, I can't run Pathfinder exactly like D&D. It's like, no, it's a different game. Different skills you build to it. You can't just hop in like to a game and be like, I'm an expert in 5th edition. This is going to work exactly the same. It's like, no, you're going to have to learn some new shit.
And that's just the thing, right? Still comes in, still gives some misinformation, because still don't understand the game. And while I'm happy that more people are talking about it, more people are still spreading misinformation on it. It's one of the reasons why I had to stop watching NoNats content, because NoNats also just gave lots of misinformation on things, or misconstrued things and like how they're designed. Because people have this idea of how a game works without trying to approach it from like a fresher standpoint. Like, we started playing Monster of the Week recently, and I had played a little bit of the Apocalypse system before, but not enough to say I have any mastery. But as we've been playing, I've been kind of understanding like generally what the rhythm is supposed to be in these kind of in the kind of sessions that we're doing, where it's mostly a balancing act on burning player luck and HP is how you create difficulty. So if you want a not difficult encounter, then, you know, you don't have as much dangerous enemies or something like that. Because the more damage the players take, the more likely they are to burn luck, and luck is a finite resource that takes a bit of time to get back in the game overall. So burning luck is kind of how you reduce your players down, but you don't want to do it too much because it's like almost permanent. Near permanent. They've changed it where you get luck back, 1 luck back every level. But if you're spending 2 luck per adventure, you're gonna run out eventually. So
yeah, you can get a little too far and kind of die.
So it's like, understanding that, you understand, okay, Monster of the Week is not a combat game. Combat should happen infrequently, but should feel stressful. Boom. And you know, and that's just the unfortunate part. And like, even within Pathfinder, there's a lot of people who misunderstand how the game works. There's so many people who are focused on like fighter this, fighter that. If you play this, your DPR is going to be bad, but then they don't take into consideration just encounters, how they're supposed to be designed, because they're not supposed to be a slugfest where the party is trying to outdamage the enemies. There's different types of encounters, different types of enemies that do different kinds of conditions that, you know, affect the party. Having a party not have restoration sucks, because there's just some effects where it's just like, you're enfeebled for a day, so all your hits are at -1 and do 1 less damage, which is terrible. I think Fighter's great. I think Fighter's really good, but people focus on the wrong parts of Fighter, which is...
It feels like that.
Hits hard, but it's like, my buddy, he's been playing Fighter, and he, you know, didn't necessarily focus on all the fightery things, went heavy into recall knowledge, and he's a recall knowledge cautious fighter kind of like strategist, and it's really cool. The +2 fighters get shouldn't be seen as just a, oh, now I can hit harder. It should be seen as a, oh, I have more wiggle room for other things in my build now, since I don't have to focus as much on my combat stats.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, that just frees you up of taking maybe a couple feats that aren't combat related. Because it's like, well, I could get this feat that makes my combat more, like, you know, stable, but it already is. So you get my +2. And yeah, it's that one thread I think you reference all the time. It's the Mark Seifter one on Twitter. That's just like, I think it's the problem a lot of people have of they view like they view DPR as a thing of you're in a basic white box standing in front of your enemy. It's like, no, you're in like environments. There's shit going on. Enemies can fly around, do stuff that you just can't deal with. You have to have other abilities and other shit going on. If you're doing a very boring white cube combat song, then yeah, of course that's gonna change how you play the game. That's not how the game is really played.
I will say it was Michael Sayer, not Seifter, but Mark Seifter did chime in on it as well.
Okay, I think that's the one I read. I read that part because I follow him.
But yeah, that's true. An ability that does 1 million damage once every 100 times you use it still has the best DPR in the game. It's true, and it's funny because it just doesn't mean anything, you know. Like, you can play a Mauler Trip Fighter build with a Gnome Flick Mace, whatever, and have really good DPR and have nothing if you don't have any ranged abilities to deal with a flying enemy, you know. Even worse if it's a flying enemy that is somewhat sturdier and can't just go down right away, because maybe most of your fighter feats aren't designed around fighting flying enemies. But you know whose abilities work no matter what elevation the enemy is? Mostly casters.
I can, firebolt or something, a flying enemy, when, good luck with standing there with your sword, just swinging at them in the air.
Well, it's like the fear spell works equally as good as an enemy on the ground as it does in the air. It's just, there's so many situations where people look at something and they get this gut reaction like that's how it works, and it really doesn't. And to be fair, I will say, in some games, that's just how it is. In 5th edition, that's just how it is sometimes. If a character does more damage, that just makes them better than other characters, because there's so many bad trades in 5th edition where if you're not doing damage, you're doing nothing, or it feels like you're doing nothing, because spells are oftentimes saver suck. So, you know.
True. So annoying.
It's just and that's the problem with these people who come on who say, and in the worst part, or I guess not the worst part, but a part that sucks is there are legitimate complaints about Pathfinder that I feel that people can actually talk about and you know, like, actually have a point to make, and they always touch on them. Like, for instance, diagonal rules, I understand the purpose of them. I feel like they're just added fluff that don't make too big of a difference, honestly. Or the sheathing and unsheathing rules in Pathfinder. My god, are they terrible. Or the fact that when you drop unconscious, you just drop all your gear, so that when you pop back up from unconscious, you spend all your actions picking yourself up and your stuff. It just doesn't feel good, mechanically speaking. And you can remove it from the game, like I have, and it literally doesn't change anything. It just makes the game feel better for the players. Because the problem is, it's a rule that plays only against players and not against enemies. Because when an enemy drops down unconscious, they're dead. They're not getting back up.
Yeah, they're just fucking gone.
They don't have dying conditions. They just die. So, you know. And while you could argue things like sleep or other conditions, well, actually not even sleep, because sleep even like has a, unless they crit fail, I think, where if they fail sleep, they fall asleep, but they're still holding all their stuff, you know?
Huh. I've never put an enemy to sleep, so I've never looked at it. Because, I mean, it's something we mentioned earlier with, like, conditions. Whenever we're playing, I always have the Archive of Nethys tab for conditions open, because there are too many and I forget.
Yeah. And as a spellcaster, it's just what you kind of gotta do, because all your spells do some condition in tandem.
I have so many and none of them are sleep.
Sleep's not a great spell, especially in combat.
It doesn't seem like it. I mean, sleep wasn't great in 5e either. I imagine it might be a little better in Pathfinder, but not amazing.
No, Silver, it doesn't. You just drop what you're holding. Not your armor or whatever. But say if you're a sword and board fighter, when you get back to 1 hit point, you have to stand up as an action. You have to pick up your sword as an action. You have to pick up your shield as an action. Here's all your actions, just standing up from being unconscious. So being unconscious not only gave you a dying condition, but also wastes your turn, whether you've had a turn yet or not.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be funny. Alternatively, you could run it that when you go down, you drop all your shit like a Diablo enemy.
That would be funny, but also fucking terrible, because putting armor takes 10 minutes.
It does, but that'd be so funny if just like, no, oh fuck, protect the fighter, he's carrying everything, he's got the best encumbrance. And then he goes down and the bag of holding explodes in loot. Like white and like common items like go flying. That'd be hilarious.
If it's a worn item, you don't drop it. It's just whatever you're holding in your hands.
Yeah, it's just a dumb roll. I'm very happy we don't engage with it.
And it doesn't change the rules. It never made... Trust me, I don't have a problem killing my players when necessary.
He doesn't. He's killed my character so many times. You don't understand. I get on my hands and knees and I beg, Cam, don't do this. I like this character. And he stands there with the gun in his hand. Doing it.
You want another demon body part, Alex? You gotta bleed for it.
For every character I lose, that's another demon body part another character will gain. This is my eternal devil deal.
And, you know, I will say Pathfinder is more complicated. I will say Pathfinder is more involved than a lot of tabletops out there. It's like playing advanced board games, you know? You could be playing, Sorry, right, which has very easy rules, or you could be playing Monopoly, which honestly doesn't have that easier rules. When you really get into Monopoly, man, so many people play Monopoly wrong.
Yes, they do, because they house rule stuff that they've heard, or house rule stuff they think are complicated, like people who don't play with houses and apartments.
What?
I've had that.
That's the
Okay,
whole
so
point of the game.
yes, that was my annoyance with the situation. Okay, so this is a story from my childhood. I was like 10 or 11 or something. A friend of mine back then, uh, we had a game. We both owned it when we were younger, Monopoly Junior, which is a different game. Obviously, it changes things and it's quicker. It should be. But one of the things it does is it has different color houses, and they're not Monopoly stuff. It's to mark what is your property because kids are too stupid to have all the cards. They don't understand what those property numbers mean. They're too dumb. So when eventually the same friend played Monopoly, he kept insisting that like, no, all this does is show that you own it. And I'm like, that no, it means that you own every property in this line, and you can increase the rent price. Like that's what this means. It's like, no, it's a different thing. It's like, then why does it say houses and that's a house? Like, different thing. Why does the rule say like that? That's not the case. That's how it works. That's just not how it is. It was so fucking frustrating. I was like, oh my god, it's just so provably wrong. Yeah, it's some people just fucking. I don't play Monopoly. That game sucks. But you just house rule all your shit for Monopoly. It's like Monopoly is like 5e, Cam. Everyone just makes it up.
Well, I disagree because I feel like Monopoly has more structure than 5e does. Though,
True, but I've never played vanilla Monopoly.
you know what? Fair. It's like Uno.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, some of the variant Uno rules are better. Like you should have the ability to stack +4s.
Yeah, because it's funny.
It's so funny.
But it's there's a lot of situations in the content creator space where people just don't know Pathfinder and talk about it like they know it and get it really wrong. And not that I'm saying that anyone who talks about something should know everything about it, but it sucks because when you have a bigger viewer base, it hurts when you say negative things. And it doesn't mean as much when you say positive things because people are strongly negativity biased. So when Mr. X comes on and say, I've been playing the game, I've been having a lot of fun with it, but you can't pick your character builds, the game plays your characters for you, and your adventures are going to be boring because you can only play characters within 4 levels of you, up or below, or all that kind of stuff. People hear that and they're just like, man, that sounds very restrictive and boring. Or that sounds very restrictive and I like my games that have a little bit more free flow to them now. Or when Puffin Force comes out and says, this game was fun, but there's a lot of times where we just didn't know what was going on. And there were so many numbers that, like, after every attack, we'd have to stop for 5 minutes and be like, oh, but I had this buff, or that buff, or yada, yada, yada. And people are like, man, that sounds way too complicated. You get people like Alex out in the world. You'll just judge something based on some loose information and then never play the game.
I mean, I'll try anything once, but I'll very quickly make snap judgments on things. I'll change my mind. But
what are you talking about, Dead Phoenix? Tell me what we got wrong about Inquisitor. I mean,
it was in the comments of the last.
I do remember seeing that.
I don't know. I just played it in Wrath of the Righteous, and I thought it was fun because I was like, "Ooh, this is a cool ability. I do more damage. That's nice." I think honestly, it's the reason why I don't plan on doing review content. Unless it's very particularly meant to be my personal opinion. Because I have an idea of a video I want to do down the line when I have a better setup and can actually pull some viewers in, and like if I was doing a live stream, because in bigger audience, I think it'd be fun. I want to make a video where I go through every single available Warhammer 40k game and make a tier list of all of it. And I would be like, I'm worried because I'm not a very I don't believe my opinions on stuff are objective fact. I'd be like, this game is like this, and I like it because of this. It'd be very personal, and I could never review a tabletop system. I could just explain why it's fun. I would never make a video on like, this is why this game's dog shit, because I don't think my reasoning of why something is bad is objective truth, and you should follow it. That's just why I don't like something.
Well, I misspoke. It wasn't branded. It was Judgment. It was just the wrong name. And they are single target focused because when they get Bane, I mean, they select a type of creature, which most creatures run in packs, but not always. They're also a martial character, so they kind of have to be single target focused.
Yeah, you can't do many sweep stuff. Is the interesting thing. I don't know how the fuck Inquisitors work. I just know them from roughly playing one Wrath of the Righteous.
But anyway, what were you saying, Alex? What was the last thing? I was just thinking about it and I spaced.
Just basically talking about my perspective on review content it's how I engage with it too, because I like all review content, regardless of the intent, is firmly from the idea that I don't believe that my opinions of why something is good or bad is objective. It is when I say like a thing, this thing is bad. It's never in the language, and it doesn't come across that way, which is something I should work to adjust. But it's always in my own head the idea of this is why I don't like it. Because I don't view myself as an objective expert on really anything. If I have an opinion on a game or a movie or something, I enjoy the movie, I enjoy the game for such and such reasons, and then I'm very interested to figure out why people's opinions deviate, because I'm just fascinated by the concept that somebody could love a thing and then another person could hate the same thing for literally the same reason, like the same cited source, but it has a different outcome. I am so fascinated by that, and at some point I'll cover 40k content like games and such, but it'll all be from the perspective of this is my opinion of what I think is good, what I think is bad. And then the big stir up for me in the 40k community of I think RTS games are shit. I hate RTS. I hate that as a genre, and there's a lot of 40k RTS games. I don't like the first 4 Dawn of War games. Or the first Dawn of War game with all of the expansions. I don't like them. I think the game's boring. Dawn of War 2 slaps.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. There's so many aspects to it, right? Because there's some people who can play a game and absolutely hate it because the person running the game ran it poorly or did it wrong. Mm-hmm. Or they could play the game and hate it because they don't like how it feels in comparison to something else they played. You know,
it's me with Starfinder, to be honest.
It's like, me with D&D, honestly, because man, I play D&D nowadays, and I'm like, oh man, it feels like Pathfinder, only worse.
Me with Starfinder being like, damn, I wish this was leaning more into 2nd edition, then it would mesh well with me. I like 2nd edition.
Yeah, and you know what, I agree. I actually like 2nd edition way more than 1st edition or Starfinder. Yeah. You know, because I feel like the rules just feel cleaner. And
it's my same hurdle with Wrath of the Righteous is the fact that I'm like, damn, I kind of wish this was just 2E based.
Yeah.
I like that it isn't, because I think that there's a lot more character variety and like character creation in that aspect for doing 1st edition. I like that all of the fucking things that are in the game, it's just harder to learn for me because I just like 2nd edition.
Silver, I mean, you're right. They might disagree with the goals of the system. Some games, the whole point is the character's struggle. It's like you play like Paranoia, or you play like Deadlands, where the whole point of those games are everything is stacked against the players, and how do you get out of it, or how do you make the most out of it? You know, Paranoia, it's just a fun, silly game. It's not a game that you should take very seriously, because you can literally say the wrong thing in character and just die. Because friend computer says so.
Isn't that's one of Booter's favorite games, right?
Maybe. I'm not sure. His
thought Peter
favorite
was
is Mutants and Masterminds.
Oh, I'm thinking of the wrong game. Okay.
Even though it's a game he's never played. But he
Fair
made
enough,
characters in it for like a week because he thought it was cool.
I mean, that at the end, that'll do it. If you really attach with like a system, you can just have that perpetual. If we ever play this, I'm so fucking ready.
But I remember one time we were running a campaign, and literally it was a short like 5 session, right? The whole point was this was a character's background, and all the other players were going to die by the end of it. But we were playing out their backstory, essentially. Well, one player didn't like that, and cheesed the game super hard to make sure their character didn't die at the end, even though that was the whole point of the game. And that is just proof that, like, sometimes you can disagree on the goal. Some players, like, it's like realism in games, right? Some people like that nitty-gritty, trying to survive and feeling the struggles of it kind of gameplay, and so they love realism in their games. Well, other players are just like, I'm here to just play video games and have fun, or play tabletop and have fun. So I don't care about carry weight. I don't care about like whether I'm eating rations or not, yada yada. I mean, man, I don't even pay attention to rations all that much because it's just a punishment system.
Yeah.
Player does not put coin into the system to get food out, so they die.
I forget, but I know in one of the table talks we've done, there were comments directed at me about how it's shitty that I when I said I'm in a game that did ration tracking, and I told my DM I don't care and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Because I don't track it, because it changes literally nothing. If I just nod and be like, I did it, or if I nod and just go like, do you have rations? Like, yeah, probably. I hadn't looked. The only time I'll track a ration is if it's like I'm playing a character that has a direct fucking resource management system, which I've done because I played a vampire and I liked the system at play. I opted into it. I'm not gonna walk into a game and be like, by the way, carry weight. And I'm like, no, fuck that. I hate carry weight in every other game. It's annoying. Let me just loot everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and because sometimes like it's the whole point. It's the whole game. There's like Pack Rat, I think, is the game on Steam. I can't remember. It's some mouse that the whole, it's like a roguelite where it's all about fitting things into your inventory and you're stronger based on like, how your items are or how they're put together.
Backpack Hero.
Backpack Hero, that one.
Oh, it's Resident Evil 4 inventory management. I fucked with that.
And it's fun. That's fun, right? And I would care about rations if rations were something that players could take advantage of. I like the pocket rolls, which no longer exist in Pathfinder 2e. It was homebrewed out, or it was eroded out real fast. I liked it because it meant that certain kinds of items or pockets actually made a difference. Sleeves of storage were really cool because they were essentially a pocket that was larger than normal pockets, for instance. And that was a system that I found very interesting. But in other games, it's like, if you told me in D&D 5e, how much equipment do you have on you? Like, what are you actually, like, is your sword in a sheath? How many sheathed weapons do you have? If I was told I can only have so many sheathed weapons, I'd be like, meh, I don't really care about this because it doesn't affect anything, you know? The only thing that matters is what weapon I'm wielding at the moment, not how many sheaths I have on my character or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, AG, if it was for a random stranger at a game, I'm obviously exaggerating it because it's like live stream and I'm not trying to like delve super into the point. So I could spend a lot of time going through all the nuances and made me come to this decision of why I acted such and such. The DM is a very good friend of mine and a person that I know that if I say, hey man, this system, I fucking hate it on a fundamental system and I'm not engaging with it in any way. And the method I'm not engaging with it literally does not change the game. And him being like, all right, fair enough. Because we're friends and it doesn't really matter. And also the game we're playing, like he dropped ration rules because he figured out pretty quickly he was doing it for earlier level stuff. Makes sense. Kept it in, and we're at such a high level and have been for such a while that we have an absurd amount of money that it literally doesn't matter. It just slows the game down. To be like, I buy rations. Okay, I hand over 5 gold of our like 100,000 gold. It's like, oh wow, this is crazy. This is an important resource we're doing. It can just be assumed that we have it. And so it's a thing of I cannot stand any system that I feel inflicts unnecessary slowdown. Where it's like, what is the fucking point of this system? All it does is it's a speed bump. That's all you've made fundamentally. I feel the exact same way about any survival element. Of like, whoa, slow your roll there. I know that thing looks fun, but did you get your 2,000 calories today? It's like, I mean, a video game or a tabletop game. I don't fucking care. It doesn't matter. You can just assume I did.
Yeah, and video games can be a big perp of this too. It's like Minecraft, right? Minecraft, it's so annoying when you just have to keep eating.
Yeah.
And eventually you just get to a point where you have so much food, it's just an inconvenience when you're like, oh, I forgot my bread in your box that has 2,000 bread. Oops, I guess I'm going to die. That's unfortunate. It's not that I didn't invest in making bread, I just forgot it one time. And I have so many resources, it doesn't matter. I can get food easily. But like beginning Minecraft, it feels good to try to get food because you don't have food right away.
It also limits you in like a proper way of exploration of you can't delve away too far because what's going to happen? You're going to be stuck somewhere with no food and you're just going to slowly starve. Like that makes sense. It's just the kind of thing of I see a system that is purely meant to block something when it changes literally nothing for someone to just be like, just wave their hand, say yes. Yeah. Nothing is altered, therefore what's the point of having it there? It's the part that meshes with me in my film background in some aspect. The part of me that thinks about everything in a very narrative, cinematic sense. It's shoelacing. I don't need to see characters do things that you'd have to do in real life. Doesn't need to be shown. You cut the things that don't matter to the actual story you're telling. And I don't know. It's a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. There's zero problems in that aspect. It was a thing that I mentioned of, I think tracking this thing is fucking pointless. And here are my reasons why I can't stand this. And it's not something I want to do in these games. And the only time I have engaged with a system like that is strictly when, hey, same DM, I'm going to be playing a vampire. And he's like, oh, cool. I have a very in-depth, cool vampire system in my world. And goes through it, and there's a resource management for getting food like that is strictly tied to my character's power. I am stronger than like a base character in this aspect, but I'm draining a resource that if I don't do, I will either die or become a problem for the party. So managing it is a limiting factor that makes the game more engaging. That's different because that's part of the game now. If it's just, did you pack your jerky today? Oh boy, well, it's like, no, I didn't. Well, do you want to turn the entire party around to go back to this like town, or do you want to just kill my character right now? Like, what's your play, DM? Do you want to keep the game going? 9 times out of 10, a DM will just be like, okay, yeah, whatever. You bought jerky or something. Cool. Yeah, you have your rations. Just drop out like a gold, and it's like, oh, I drop a gold, and then you take out. I just looked at our party hoard, 32,000 gold. It's like, oh, I lost one. This is meaningful. This is great choices my character made today.
That's fair. And Alex was just being hyperbolic earlier. There's never been a situation where Alex was expected to follow a rule, and just said fuck it and didn't, without mentioning it.
I'm being hyperbolic. It's something I've talked to this friend about a lot of our different tabletop stuff. He likes a lot of stuff to be nitty gritty and like very detail oriented, and I'm like, nah, schmeep out. I'll just fuck around. I'm not that person. I'm not organized. That's not who I am inherently. And so, it's a thing where I'm very vocal of if you have these elements and you try to make me engage them, I'll be like, is this actually important, or are you just shoelacing and this is going to be literally nothing? Because if it's shoelacing, I don't want to engage with
A game that I think does food really well is Valheim, actually.
Oh, 100%.
Because the type of food you eat actually makes a difference because it determines how much stamina you have and how much health you
Literally.
have. And so you're very motivated to go out and get the good foods. And if you don't have food, it's not like you die. It's not like a mandatory system. You're just so weak that you could easily die.
You just could die, and it's like you don't have that problem of I need to run over to my friend's longhouse. It's like, okay, yeah, gotta make sure I pack food for the journey, so I'll be draining stamina by running. It's like, no, you're just gonna have to, manage your stamina bar better. But if you eat all these like really nice foods you like spent like a lot of time on preparing, then everything's just kind of easier. So it just makes more sense. It's a good system because like in Valheim, I'm not gonna randomly explode because I mismanaged a meter. That's why I like games like Subnautica and shit have never appealed to me. Because it's just like the idea of a robot voice blinking in my head like, your water meter is low. It's like, fuck off. Don't tell me what to do. I just want to go explore in a big submarine.
That sounds like ass. Sorry, Silver, but that sounds like garbage.
No. I hate tracking ammunition. If it's magical ammunition or like cool, unique stuff, 100% makes sense. But like arrows, I can't do it.
Yeah, basic ammunition should just be infinite because it's literally a resource cost with no gain. Because distance doesn't mean anything in a turn-based system.
Nothing.
Like
distance matters in a war game, but that's about it.
In a realistic situation, it totally matters because killing someone before they get to you is a very legitimate thing. In these games, it's like, oh, it's the enemy's turn. They run up to you and they hit you. And it's like, me having distance here made very little difference, actually, other than they wasted actions to run up to me. And now I must debate whether I waste actions running away from them. And it just completely counterpoints itself. Like, it's a resource cost that, like, and it's not like your limited resource thing does more damage than the normal weapon does, or anything like that. There are some games where ammunition probably makes a bigger difference, but it's not turn-based, I guarantee. And
also,
go ahead.
I mean, you finish your point.
Okay. Doing it both ways, as I've done in the last 20 years, it made no difference other than making the player hate it.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, I've come to my opinions on this all from a DM perspective, where I started out DMing, and I looked at these rules, I looked and engaged with them, and then I was looking at it, and I'm like, this is making my job more annoying, because now I need to make sure I'm tracking. So it came from a perspective of, hey players, you see these parts of your character sheet, like ammunition, carry weight, all that? I don't want to know what your carry weight is because I don't care. I'm not going to track your arrows and I don't want to. So I'm not going to think about it. Have fun. Because we don't track cantrips.
Yeah, you don't track cantrips. It's the same premise.
Yeah, because they probably do similar damage and similar resource. It's different. If you're casting if you're shooting an arrow that like explodes in holy light and will like insta kill a bunch of like undead, oh yeah, track that shit. That's important because it's a cool resource. It's just if you're shooting a standard arrow with a standard arrow stats, it's not important enough of a resource.
Yeah, and in fact, that actually makes arrows worse when you compare it to spells, because that means spellcasters just get free arrows.
Yeah. It's just like, because alternatively just cast Firebolt or something repeatedly and it's a better bang for your buck and you don't have to track it and you don't have to worry about being in a situation where like, oh shit, I got 10 left. Which, I mean, the only time I'll say that I can understand tracking arrows and stuff is it could lead to some really cool situations in a game where from the get-go, from the beginning, you're like, okay, we're doing a game, you are adventurers, like level maybe like 1 or 3 adventurers, something. You're stranded on an island, and it's like literally a survival experience. That makes sense. Because then the whole point of it is that heavy resource management so you literally don't die, which I also think could be just a fun, like, short campaign idea, to be honest. Putting adventurers and, like, player characters in a survival situation where they have to actually engage with it and like magic shit's involved, could be cool. And in that case, yeah, you craft your arrows and you have to track it, and you have those moments of like, I have 3 arrows I made left, and there's this creature. Do I engage with it in range, or do I get in front because I don't have to track that and worry about running out of the arrows I spent like an hour making? In that aspect, I think it's a good idea. In standard play, I don't think it matters.
I mean, that's been our whole conversation up to this point is, if it has a point, then sure, it's, if anything, we can enjoy it, you know. If there is no point other than, I don't know, realism, I guess, then just, who cares? It doesn't change anything. Literally, Pathfinder is not balanced around the scarcity of arrows or bullets, despite most bullet using classes having a feat that allows you to make bullets. It's pointless because the game isn't balanced. Guns are not even necessarily inherently better than bows in Pathfinder because of, they accounted for that, you know. Guns do weaker damage except when they crit, when then they do more damage. That's their whole balancing point. It's not about resources or ammunition or anything. So why track it other than realism? Because it's literally taxing a player for no reason.
I mean, I'm approached with realism in video games or tabletop games. I break out in hives. I don't like it. I'm immediately like, but it's not real though. This is a game, and I want to play it like a game. I don't want it to be real life. I could just go outside. I could just LARP, honestly, if I want to have realistic tabletop.
In Deadlands, bullets make sense because bullets, one, are kind of cheap in the system, which is crazy, but two, you can also trade bullets. There's like a trading system for bullets specifically because they're just kind of like a commodity in the Weird West.
Oh, is it like Metro? Because in Metro, bullets are also currency in that.
Similarly.
In that world.
Similarly.
Okay, yeah, because like, I mean, standard bullets, like shitty bullets, that means nothing. But like, you have a resource in the Metro games of high quality military grade bullets. Those are currency, or you can put them in your gun for more damage. So you have that toss up of like, I could buy some really nice shit in town, but that monster's real scary. I could just kill it like in 1 or 2 shots with this.
Yeah, and guns are also just more powerful in Deadlands than martial weapons are by a pretty far margin. So it makes a lot more sense in that game.
And AG, that is our point. If
just literally have said multiple times, if they're special bullets, track them.
If it's standard bullets and like standard ammo, don't see the point. If it's like a special one that does some really cool shit, then yeah, it's the same principle as tracking spell slots. It's a resource to do something cool when the baseline is just kind of alright. Like, it's the difference between casting a firebolt and the fireball.
It's like literally the difference between, oh, this NPC doesn't accept copper coins. Go to the bank and exchange all your copper for silver. You just created an extra step for literally no reason other than annoying your players. Because ammunition is also just not that expensive. And once the players get a bag of holding, they can just grab like 500 arrows and like never need to worry about it again. So
yeah, like in Skyrim when you loot iron arrows off of literally everybody. I've been playing Skyrim and I have been playing for a couple hours. I already have like 300 iron arrows.
You know, the point, like, the reason why Pathfinder works so well is because it's cut the chaff in so many areas and it feels good to play. The players don't feel like they're being taxed for nothing. If you like games where they have that realism, then, you know, that's your goal. That's the aim. That's what you're trying to do. We already talked about different goals in games. So I mean, play how you want to play. It doesn't sound like we'll be able to convince you, and nor should we be able to. If that's how you like playing the game, then feel free.
At the end of the day, if you and your friends are having fun at your tables, then it's good. Like, that's what matters. But yeah, it's up to you. It's just I have the principle of I will never track ammunition because fuck that. That's boring.
Hyperbolically, he'll do it when it's necessary.
If it's if it's important for the game and it's agreed on early. If it's agreed on, then sure. If I think it's worthwhile. Otherwise, I just won't join the game. If it's like we're gonna track all of this, I'm like, I'm out. I'm just gonna hate
That's
this.
fair. And if you don't, if a style is not to your liking, then definitely don't play it. But we're out of time, so that's gonna be it for us. Yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. I think I'm gonna make a video on the Puffis Forest redemption video, which is not a redemption video, but it's fun to like put it out there. And we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow, though, I think I'm just gonna... I haven't done any video work all week, so I just need to bust something out that is gonna be easy. And I think the next video is Monk for my Pathfinder Bites, which actually hype. I love Monk. So that's gonna be an absolutely fun one, though I think a really easy and short one to do, because Monk is very simple, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
But that's going to be it from us. Do you have anything you want to leave us with before we go?
If you like Warhammer stuff, go check out my channel, Glue Boy on YouTube. I do Warhammer 40k content. There will be back. I missed an upload today because I'm busy and exhausted, and I have zero energy or will to do so. And the energy I'm going to be doing is now going to be towards house stuff literally in 10-20 minutes. But yeah, I'm talking about the Emperor of Mankind. That was my last upload. The next upload will be the part 2 on it, because there's a lot of fucking info. And other than that, just keep posted. It's gonna be really fun with 10th edition coming out, and I think already out. So there's a lot of good time right now to get into Warhammer and Warhammer lore if you've had an inkling. But yeah, just check out my channel and subscribe, especially because missed upload, the algorithm might get upsetty at me.
I will be getting back into things. I have no big projects there. Things I have to do are just sand the deck and then paint it next weekend. So hopefully I'll be no longer exhausted. And we are getting closer now, actually. It's kind of crazy. We're a little over 2 weeks from when everyone is going to be coming over to our place here. And when they do, we're going to have a bunch of fun videos coming out and a lot of really fun group things on the channel as well. It's also probably going to be right in the time period of when Rage of Elements stuff is going to start, releasing early. So next month, July, is going to be a bit of a banger. So if you don't want to miss any of the stuff that we're going to be talking about, any of the reveals, please like the video and click the bell. I don't ask for this often, but click the bell notification so that you can get notified when I make the videos on the things that come out. It's going to be really big. It's going to be really huge. I'm very, very excited about it. And kineticists. We're going to talk about kineticists. Even if I'm not given the okay to show anything on kineticists, we'll be talking about kineticists when I get the pre-release material stuff, which is going to be pretty sick. So if you don't want to miss out on that, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, all that kind of stuff. But that's gonna be it for us. Thank you all so much for watching, and I guess we'll say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.